I adopted their way of thinking and what they consider to be right instead of just asking myself what would be right for me. Hi everyone and welcome back to another video. My name is Evelyn Barta and I love to talk about everything that is related to spirituality and living from the heart. In today's video, I would like to talk about how to set personal boundaries. How to say yes when you mean yes and how to say no when you mean no. The other day when I asked you guys on my Instagram what kind of topics you would like to hear about, this was one of the most requested ones. And this is something that it took me such a long time to learn as well, how to set very defined boundaries. And all my discomfort, all my troubles and problems in life up to this point were rooted in the fact that I didn't have very clear boundaries. So I would like to share in this video everything that I've learned about boundaries myself. And I would like to give you some tips on how to set very defined boundaries for yourself so other people don't cross them in the future. When you recognize what your boundaries are and then you decide not to compromise what is right for you in any shape or form, that is going to save you from so much pain in the future. If you're new here, please subscribe to my channel and then hit the bell so you get notified every single time that I upload another video. Without any further ado, let's get into the video. What does having very strong and very clear boundaries mean? It means that you are knowing your own limits and you don't feel bad or guilty about expressing them to other people, and you don't feel bad about notifying them when they're crossed those particular limits. It means that you're not doing things out of obligation in order to keep peace or in order to be accepted by other people. So in other words, your thoughts, your words, and your actions are in alignment. You mean what you say, and you say what you mean, and what you think and what you feel is also aligned with your actions. And I will be very honest with you, I have just recently understood about myself how important it was for me in the past to be accepted and to be approved by those people that I consider to be more knowledgeable than myself and people that I consider to be authority figures. And this feeling of not being good enough and what I know about myself is not enough was driving my actions in many situations. I adopted their way of thinking and what they consider to be right instead of just asking myself what would be right for me. We don't only seek for approval when it comes to authority figures and people that we consider to be more knowledgeable than us, for example, our bosses. But that's the most typical scenario. But then we also seek for approval from our friends, from our family members, from our romantic partners. Whenever we say yes to something that we don't want to do in order not to upset the person or not to disappoint them, we always cross our own boundaries. So the real answer doesn't lie in how to teach people to respect your boundaries, but how to teach yourself to respect your own boundaries and your own limits. So now let me share some tips with you on how to set very clear boundaries for yourself, and then also to know your own limits and not to get disempowered and disappointed with yourself in the future, because whenever you are crossing your own boundaries, you will always feel disappointed with yourself. So my tip number one is to be very clear about your feelings and your needs. And this requires for you to speak your truth, to be very, very honest with yourself. What are your feelings and what are your needs? Think about your feelings as your inner compass. And I always say that in my videos, that your feelings are always showing you the direction that you should take in life. Your intuition is wanting the best for you, but we always tend to ignore or to doubt this inner gut feeling that we have about things. But in reality, they always show us what is the truth in every single situation. The moment that you have a feeling that something is wrong, that something doesn't feel right, and you feel disempowered, it means that you crossed your own boundaries. And knowing your feelings, knowing what they mean, being in tune with them, and operating from the heart space is crucial when it comes to setting boundaries. It all comes down to self-love, and self-love always starts with understanding yourself and understanding your feelings. When you're aware with your feelings and you pay attention to them, they will show you exactly what your needs are. You would be surprised how many people don't even have the slightest clue about what their needs are, or even if they do, they ignore them, or they feel bad about expressing them to the other person. And this is something that I did so many times as well in the past, especially in my relationships. So many times I wouldn't talk about my feelings and what my needs are because I consider that I will be judged by that person if I tell them what I want out of the relationship. For example, basic things like, spending more quality time together. I wouldn't talk about these things because I thought that they will consider me needy and weak. Our society really likes to label people that express their needs as needy people, and it's not okay to wait for someone to do things for you. You should be fine by yourself. You should be okay by being alone. It doesn't matter what the reason is behind the fact that you are needing those things. You have those needs and you have to acknowledge them and you have to honor them and express them to the other person. And if I'm considered to be needy by that person, let me be considered needy. It's okay. This is who I am. I'm honoring how I feel. How can I expect someone to provide me with my needs if I'm not even clear about my needs to myself? No matter what your feelings are and what your needs are, acknowledge them, accept them, and communicate them. Love them unconditionally for what they are. By the way, I have a video on unconditional love and how to love unconditionally. So if you're interested to watch the video, I will leave the link in the description below. Now, my tip number 2 is to be assertive and to be straightforward when it comes to communicating your boundaries. Again, when someone has did something to you or said something that doesn't feel right, that leaves you with this feeling of being disempowered, just be very straightforward with communicating that to that person. You can always stand up for yourself in a very nice, honest, elegant, and calm manner without being aggressive and without being angry. I remember that in the past, I always considered myself someone who is not taking BS. So I always stood up for myself, didn't let people to not respect me. But now I understand that actually my ability to stand up for myself always showed up when I already had enough of the situation and when I was so angry and so pushed to the limit that I did not have other choice. And this was such a self-sabotaging behavior because I actually gained confidence from my anger. And I let other people to push me to the limit in order to get angry and then be able to stand up for myself. It didn't come, the confidence, from being very honest and very straightforward with myself and with other people, but it came from that place of anger and that place of resentment for my needs not being met. And then also the disappointment towards myself, that many times I said yes to situations when I really meant no. You can avoid this altogether just by being very clear about your boundaries, about your limits, what you are able to do, what you are not able to do, and to communicate them in a straightforward way without sugarcoating it. My tip number 3 is to stop pushing yourself beyond your own limits. Whenever you are pushing yourself beyond your own limit, you are again crossing your own boundaries. And again, this is something that I did in the past and I'm still doing sometimes, is that whenever I feel like I cannot take over anything more than what I'm taking over and I need to stop, I'm still not stopping. Now I have learned what it is to be in tune with my own emotions when it comes to any activity in life, and instead of looking at right and at left what other people are doing, I have to listen to my own intuition, my own feelings, my own body. And whenever I have to take a break, I will take a break. Whenever I feel like I have to take action, I will take action. But whenever it's time for non-action, my body is gonna signal that to me and I have to stop. So whenever desperately I'm trying to push for my own goals in life, always negative feelings arise in me and I start to resent the process. So to avoid that altogether, I really have to listen to myself and not to cross my own boundaries, because I will not be able to communicate any value to people through that process. So I have to really get back to this heart space and to operate from a space of creativity and space of nurturing myself, so to speak. My tip number 4 to you guys is to stop explaining yourself to other people. I have been finding myself in situations just recently where I felt like I had to explain myself to people. And what is really happening in reality is that no one is demanding from you to explain yourself to them. You are demanding from yourself to start explaining yourself to people. And I noticed that the more I'm trying to explain myself to someone in order to make them agree with my point of view, the more defensive I become. So the more defensive I am, the worse I feel about myself. I have all the right not to have to explain myself to anyone. And in case people are expecting an explanation from me, it's their problem, it's not my problem. I don't owe an explanation to anyone about why a no is a no and why a yes is a yes, why I seem so different today to how I was yesterday. And I should not expect them either to understand this version of me now, because they have a version of me in their minds based on their past memories about me, and they will always want back that version of me. And I might no longer be a vibrational match to them, and that is causing them discomfort. And they are scared of losing me. But I also have to understand that the way they respond to my boundaries and the way they feel, it is not something that I have to take responsibility for. My tip number 5 to you guys is to stop adopting other people's boundaries as yours. We are so diverse and we are so different to each other. Boundaries can be subject to culture, your upbringing, religion. Like, there are so many factors that are behind one person's boundary. What feels right for me doesn't need to feel right for another person, and the other way around. Just to give you an example, in many of my workplaces in the past, we had incentives. So they were amazing prices, sometimes even money involved. And most of my colleagues were very excited about this. And it was a true motivation for them. But for me, it was something completely different. I perceived incentives as a form of competition for, it doesn't matter what reason, but this is how I perceived it. So for me, it wasn't motivation at all. It was a factor of stress. If I started to push myself to perform better at work in order to get the prize, I would have violated my own boundaries and I wouldn't have performed better just because of that. While for other people, trying to push themselves in order to get the prize wouldn't have been a question of violating their boundaries. And I know, for example, there are some people that hate if someone is taking their brush to brush their hair. For me, for example, it's not a problem. I don't care if someone is taking my brush and they are brushing their hair with it. And if someone was trying to tell me that I should never allow anyone to take my brush to brush their hair, I would tell them that I think I should allow them, because that is your boundary, it's not my boundary. We oftentimes let other people to tell us what our boundaries should be. They are projecting their own fears and their own limits onto us, and we take them and we adopt them as they were ours. This is a mistake. Always be very clear about what your boundaries are, what your feelings are, and always listen to that inner voice that is telling you if something is wrong or something is right. And you are the single person that can identify that. No one else can identify that for you. And then my last tip for you guys is to respect and don't violate other people's boundaries. I have done that many times in the past whenever I was trying to convince someone that my point of view is more valuable than their point of view, and they should do this instead of doing that, and they should be like this way, that way. And you know, many people don't let you know that you have violated their boundaries, but the good news is that the more you are practicing to set boundaries for yourself, the more you will be respectful when it comes to other people's boundaries as well. So if someone is coming to me for an advice, then I will give them an advice. I will come up with my opinion about the situation, but I love to avoid the word should. Whenever I tell someone that they should do something in a certain way, it always means that I consider that they would be better off if they acted in a way that I would act in that situation, which is false, because they are not me and I'm not them. Their journey is not my journey, and their learning process is not equal to my learning process. The more you will start reading people's body language, the more you will understand from their behaviors that a no is a no. I'm just finding myself less in situations where people are crossing my boundaries, and that's because I am not violating their boundaries either. And even if I'm close to crossing someone's boundaries, I always catch myself on time and I stop doing that. So it's really a lifetime journey to learn to say no, to learn to stand up for yourself. But if you are practicing awareness and being in your heart space and in tune with your emotions, your personal boundaries will assert themselves. I really hope that these tips were useful for you, and it will help you in the future to set very clear boundaries and to stand up for yourself whenever you feel like your boundaries were violated. Don't forget that your dreams, your values, and your goals are just as valuable as other people's goals, and you owe it to yourself to only do always what feels right for you. Thank you so much for all your support and your kind words. I really appreciate every single message, every single comment that I receive, and I'm learning so much in this process by doing these videos. I'm not having it all together. I'm just learning as well, and then sharing whatever I have learned in the past and I'm still learning now. So Please let me know. I would appreciate if you would tell me what kind of videos you would like to see in the future from me. Then if you like this video, please don't forget to give me a thumbs up. I wish you all the best, guys, with your boundary setting, with everything. Have a good day. Take care of yourself. And then I will see you in the next video. Bye.